You're listening to the 123 show with me, Noreen Mayer, on this Friday afternoon. Now, let's turn to our first topic and our guest today. Now, in the next 23 minutes or so, you will hear about the Shared Value Project Hong Kong. They are a platform that tackles various pressing issues here in Hong Kong, and one of their first initiatives is tackling mental health issues and youth development. I'd like to welcome to the program their CEO, Catherine Greenberg. Welcome to the program, Catherine, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Noreen. Nice to be here.
I should also mention we are on Facebook Live as well, Noreen Mayer on RTHK Radio 3, so you'll be able to see and also hear Catherine there as well. And perhaps if you have any comments or questions, feel free to drop us a line as well. Let's rewind to the beginning. Now, the Shared Value Project is newly launched. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so we're actually, although we're only a year in Hong Kong, we're more established than that. We've had 4 years running Shared Value Project out of Australia. So the Shared Value Initiative actually started back in 2011. There was Michael Porter and Mark Kramer wrote an article for the Harvard Business Review about creating shared value. And on the back of that, and with the Clinton Global Initiatives, they then decided that this was the time to actually launch it. It started in the US, and it has been expanding through their consultancies in Switzerland and India. We've now got a presence in South Africa as well. But most importantly, we've been here in Hong Kong for the last year. We had our soft launch last year at the Creating Shared Value Forum that was hosted by the government. The SIE Fund are very much behind the concept as well.
So what do you do exactly here in Hong Kong?
What we're doing is providing a collaborative platform for companies, multinationals, SMEs, to come together and start addressing some of the key complex Hong Kong social issues, which cannot be addressed alone.
Yeah. So, what do you mean by that?
Well, for example, I presented to our 8 founding members about a month or so ago, 3 key issues that have been in the press, which would be mental health, very much so, the pollution, plastics pollution, and the other one is youth development and education. And we asked them, out of those initiatives, which ones would they prefer us to help guide them and support them to address and to actually contribute to finding solutions.
Yeah. Who are these companies then? What sorts of things do they do? What are these companies?
It's cross-sector. Our initial ones, founding members, are AXA, AIA, Accenture, Barclays, EY, Fullerton Health, Nestle and Tricor. And they are coming together in order to address and use their core competencies wherever they can. So in the case of mental health, we actually did a vision and project scoping last week.
Yeah. What do you mean by these companies have to come together to tackle these issues? Why aren't they able to sort of address these issues by themselves? Is there some sort of synergy that can be created if all these sort of big thinking, they put on their thinking caps together and come together to tackle these issues?
Well, a lot of people think it's just the remit of government. You know, it's a social issue, and why doesn't government tackle it? And,
but we know that sometimes
and
the private sector.
Yes, I mean, we are very collaborative in that nature in terms of we will work with government. We are working with the NGOs who are actually frontline, and they're delivering very worthwhile services. What we believe that corporates can bring is the scale and the resources that they have to address the issue as well. So by our members actually electing to do mental health first, we're then shining the spotlight and finding the right contacts for us to network, to get the experts in. So I know that you had New Life and CUHK, Hong Kong U, Centre of Prevention of Suicide. They are all working in this area, and we want to tap into their knowledge and their experience and just add a different layer to it. So last month we were able to pull together a collaborative research piece, collecting up some of this research and sharing that and giving our executives a briefing in terms of what the problem is. And then through the vision setting, we were able to give a broader thematic view. And it's the first time that businesses have actually come to look at a social issue rather than just their business opportunities. And we want them to actually shine that spotlight on the opportunities to actually have a sustainable business within that, bring a business solution. So, yeah.
Yeah. So what can they do about these issues? For example, you mentioned that last week you launched the initiative to tackle mental health here in Hong Kong. What did you do, and how are you engaging the corporates, and what do they want to achieve as well?
Well, we're very much using the design thinking and the innovation platforms behind it to brainstorm potential ideas. As we said, there are various sectors involved, and there might be some cross-sector collaboration going on. It's more about making a collective impact, though. So we're providing them the research and the access to experts. They're then going to go back and see what they can do on an individual basis. But knowing the other players who are also engaged in the same space, they can reach out. So if they need technological skill, if they need a financial partner, they then have those within the group to draw upon and see if they can partner up. Some of the mental health, we're talking about shared value creation, so that has to have a business return. It has to be relevant to their business for it to actually be sustainable. What is it in it for them? What's the business case behind it? And most of it, you could say, is revenue driven. It's a growth mindset. It's addressing underserved areas of the market, whether it be financial inclusion or just neglected pockets because they couldn't get access to certain products. So in terms of mental health specifically, Noreen, as you mentioned, what sort of things could it be? Well, it could be a mobile app for self-help prevention. It could be an early diagnostic tool to help. The fact that there are too few professionals in the space. So in fact, they've half the number that the World Health Organization recommend for a population our size. We need to find other ways so that it doesn't escalate and that we can prevent it earlier. So yes, these mobile apps, other online services, because then you can get a greater scale from that. Insurance products, perhaps, just so that you can get cover for early medical intervention. At the moment, the cover is only for severe cases and hospital admission. So just kind of re-examining what products are available. And of course, there is workplace initiatives too. So to reduce the causes and the factors of the stress and anxiety behind it. So there are so many aspects, whether it's urban planning, making sure that you do have those parks for free time, you have social and cultural places to go. So if you look at the underlying factors, there are actually a lot of corporates that can address it in what they do. It's just shining that social lens on business in general.
Yeah, you mentioned just now, so Shared Value Project is a members a collaboration, a members only. So do you sort of offer them, right, shall we look to tackle mental health? Shall we look to tackle various shared values? And then they all voted for mental health?
That's right, yes.
Why do you think to corporates mental health is on the forefront as well? Why do you think a lot of them voted to tackle mental health?
Well, interestingly, we did examine the landscape of where they're doing their corporate social responsibility, and most have, in fact 100% of them actually have EAP, which is employee assistance programs. But interestingly, the facts come out that less than 50% of employees actually utilize these programs. And so it is intrinsic in terms of their employee base, but there's also a huge opportunity because the costs could be as high as $1.35 billion US per year for Hong Kong. That's reflection of the 3.9 million employees that we have here, and it's more than, on average, 2,500 Hong Kong dollars per employee, the cost to business. So it's a big number.
When you mentioned there's assistance for these employees, that they have access to mental health programs and they're just not using it, or what's the issue?
The employee assistance programs tend to be a broader service than that. The issue is stigma.
Yes.
And the fact that it's much better just to call in sick without giving a reason that it was anxiety. It's perceived as better to show up and be in your seat, but presenteeism is just as high a cost as absenteeism. And it impacts not only the business and your one-on-one customers, it impacts the team as well. There is a quite significant cost to the business by not addressing the stresses and anxieties.
Yeah, is this a cultural thing as well? I was having dinner with some friends the other week, and we talked about, how some of us were Chinese, some of us weren't, and we were just saying when we used to tell our families, oh, we feel a bit down or we feel sad, most of the Chinese parents would say, oh, you'll get over it. It's okay. Do you think there's that mindset in the culture to not admit to stress or anxiety, or is it across the globe? It's just something that it's a taboo, and people don't want to admit that they are depressed.
Yes, it is seen as a weakness globally. It is being addressed globally as well in terms of the initiatives. But I make the analogy back to the taboo of cancer about 10 years ago, and that was one charity that I got very involved in. And just in the last 10, 12 years, I've seen the progress made in terms of that, that it's no longer seen as a, well, as you say, it's not just a taboo, but it was sort of a curse on the family. But in terms of depression and anxiety, I guess there's the fear that it's going to affect your job prospects. And if we can address it in the workplace, then maybe that taboo can be removed.
Absolutely. I think we were talking just before the program started, people would readily admit, if they have heart disease or liver disease or some sort of disease to do with the body. But when it comes to the mind, people are often ashamed. And it carries a weight because you don't want to be judged. You don't want people to see you in a different light. You don't, as you mentioned, you don't want to be seen as weak. But it isn't weakness to talk about these things. No. And the more people talk about it, and at some point in everybody's life, we would be affected by some sort of mood disorders, whether it's a temporary or permanent situation. But the more people talk about it, it lends voice to the cause that, you're not alone in this sort of fight, and that's exactly what the Shared Value Project aims to address as well. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about the roadmap that you have also proposed to how to tackle mental health here in Hong Kong.
Well, the roadmap that we've put our corporates on, and we have actually opened it up to a broader network. So we're using the SIE Fund have their own contacts, and the other NGOs that we're working with. So we've opened up the roadmap, and the idea is to have the vision which we've set. We've been hosted by Accenture in terms of a workshop for project scoping. The next step will be a 3-day workshop at the end of September, where our participants, because I say it has been opened up to more than our members, will come with their ideas and have further mentoring in terms of how to make it a viable business proposition. And then the hope is that within 3 months we can have a feedback in terms of how they're getting on. But we believe it will take at least 18 months to actually see some progression, because there are so many prototypes and everything else that any idea has to go through and iterations in the process to actually make an impact. But we just think it's thrilling that we've got 8 committed members, large organizations with the scale and the engagement that they can bring to it, focusing on the same theme at the same time, and that's how we can get a groundswell and collective impact. So we hope to support the NGOs that we're working with and really make a difference that can help Hong Kong.
Yeah, and hopefully the smaller companies can also get on board as well, because mental health it doesn't discriminate. It's not just people with sort of big jobs in big companies. The small companies and people working in maybe other fields also face that as well. I want to also turn this discussion for students and youth as well. In Hong Kong, sadly, at the beginning of some academic years, we see a sharp rise in student suicide rate as well. And how are you looking to tackle mental illness in schools as well?
Well, as far as our corporates are concerned, we don't discriminate by age. Every individual is a potential customer, and it affects them in terms of the families that that are part of their individual communities. We know that as far as the schools, there's hackathons that students are doing in terms of coming up with their own ideas. There are NGOs that are trialing products with high schoolers. So we know that there's work being done, and corporates are there to help sponsor and then hopefully scale up the appropriate products that they can see fit. But you mentioned earlier in terms of the fact that there shouldn't be a stigma, that this isn't an emotional disease. This is actually a medical, and speaking to the users, it is definitely the diagnosis is a medical one, and you can rest assured that there is a cure. 70% of cases are curable and treatable, and it's just a question of getting the help early enough and talking about it.
And it's that starting point of getting the help that people sort of think, oh, it's something that, I'll sleep on it or it'll get better. But, it accumulates as well from the stress, especially in a place like Hong Kong as well, where, the city never sleeps. And people are constantly trying to raise their threshold for stress. It seems like we look to people who can handle of stress, saying like, yes, they're doing it, so why can't I as well? But we know that, not everybody is the same. I want to also turn to sort of future projects that you're looking to tackle as well. I also saw on your website that you have an lab.
It's the Entrepreneur Lab.
Yes. What's that about?
That's the 3-day workshop at the end of September. And we're engaging a group from the UK, actually, who've worked with Barclays Group globally, and we're bringing it to the region here. And this 3-day workshop, they do get the experts in, and we're supplying a few mental health advisors so that they can take their ideas to business concept through. So just expand and build their viable businesses.
And for some of our listeners who are interested to learn more about the Shared Value Project Hong Kong as well, what can we do, and what can we find out, and how can we contribute and learn more?
Yes, well, everybody is a potential shared value champion, whether you're championing it at home so that your children, your partners go back and actually ask to get involved and have a purpose and a meaning at work, integrate it into your daily work. It's more about championing the cause for shared value. So please, social media, and go to our website, follow us, and you'll learn about the initiatives that we're doing and how you can get engaged.
Absolutely. And you also have a Facebook page as well. To know more about the Shared Value Project, their handle is Share Valued Project Hong Kong, all one word, on Facebook. And also, what's your website as well, Catherine?
That's sharedvalueprojecthongkong.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Catherine. I look forward to hearing more initiatives from the Shared Value Project Hong Kong.
Thank you very much, Noreen. Thank you.